Welcome to the Soul Tapes podcast. My name is Adam Cruz.
My name is Antonio Reyes.
And this is episode 23.
Yep.
Today we want to focus on the topic of creativity. Something that, you and I kind of resonate with, and a part of this podcast wanting to have these discussions and conversations about ideas, and really diving into some of our God-given creative, things, especially thinking about growing up as children. A lot of times these creative juices seem to be things that you can kind of see even at a younger age, right? And I think it's something that, we can kind of explore and think about and talk about.
Yeah. So interesting because we were talking about, creativity can go so many routes, right? There's so nuances. So there's so many things that we can discuss about creativity. But I think the point of this conversation today is our journey to where we at. I think you and I are people that use our creative ability to speak, to write, to communicate, to put thoughts together. And that's kind of like the way we music, know. So I think that if we take it back to how we grew up, I think the reality is that the structure and the development are the way we grew up didn't really help, at least in a personal level. Because I don't think when I was school, I always felt out of place, I don't think I ever fit in a class. I was never really good with math. You put numbers in my face right now, I'll quit in a minute. Like I'm not really good with numbers, with normal science. Well, science now are a little more appealing because of different reasons, but I think in that time it was not attracted to me.
It didn't spark anything in you.
Really, history, which now I study a lot of history because of what I do. But I think at that time was a very difficult time because I wasn't really good for school, And I think that the kind of like the way they set you up is like you kind of like achieve or you pursue a career. You may be an architect, maybe a doctor, maybe you're a teacher. And I think for me wasn't appealing. I don't think I identify with none of that. So I think in our journey, we can talk more about it. It was a difficult thing to find my place where I really belong.
Yeah. Kind of thinking about education, especially growing up, those middle school, high school years. You're right. It always, you're learning like a foundation to a lot of potential careers, right? A lot of information we learn is supposed to be valuable and kind of build upon, concepts that we might explore depending on our interests. So like you're saying, like, for those that are good at math, end up going into like career fields like engineering or something like that.
Which is great for you guys.
Yeah, which is great. But I think what you're bringing up is really key because there's a lot of people that have probably felt that way as far as growing up in this system that doesn't, it almost feels like it doesn't value creativity and the arts. And especially because I think if we think about the way the world has changed, it probably didn't seem as viable to have a career or make an income off of art and creativity. So because of that reason, you even get a lot of like parents, not really seeing the value in that and saying, oh, you might see it in your child at a younger age. But then you might say, well, let me make sure that they're going to make a living, on something else, not just because they like to draw or because they like music or because they can speak and articulate themselves very well. Nowadays, the way things have changed, there's that possibilities have become endless, So
I think that we take it back also, the whole family dynamic is very important. For many of us, we grew up in a circle of family that, like you said, they didn't know how to really take creativity from us. It's more like a hobby.
Yeah.
Like, you like that, it's cool, you know, but you need to do a career. Which, fast forward, you know, who would have thought that a graphic designer is needed right now, you know? Gamers, you making millions of dollars, you know, creating content, videos, editing stuff was gonna become, you know, the new way of becoming millionaire and things like that, you know. So I think that even growing up with our families, they didn't know how to really work with it. Now, it's very interesting. I'm probably going somewhere else.
It's okay. Let's do it.
But one of the things that I was discussing with Gabby the other day, very interesting, you know. In the United States, I think one of the things that helps a lot, you and I think a lot of their friends are connected to people that, maybe even musicians that tour with important people, you know, Snoop Dogg, I don't know, Childish Gambino, people like that, you know, and there are other musicians, bass players, drummers, piano players, so many other people, you know, and I was telling Gabby, you know, if you see in the African American community, the most prominent artists, they come out of church.
Yeah.
A lot of them come out
common.
of church. Yes.
Yeah.
Musicians, vocalists, you know, a lot of them, even like white people, you know, Elvis, people like them, they actually grew up in church. And they actually explode and they become very influential. Yeah. I was telling Gabby, it's very interesting because they have a space where they nurture and they nurture their creative music, you know, ability. Yeah. I was like, the interesting thing is if you go to South America or Central America or even in Latinos, we don't have that space that much. Here in the United States, yes. But if you go more down, it's barely growing up. And we don't produce as many musicians, as many artists. Yeah. Because it's very difficult to find that space where they nurture. Even if you are not rich. If you're rich or you have good like income. Yeah. I'm sorry. Your parents can send you to school in Mexico, or they send you, you know, to nurture that ability. But here is like, if you even live in the projects or you live in because you go to church, they nurture that aspect of you without even knowing. You just become very good at it. Yeah. So is this space where they nurture that, and for us, we didn't have that. Yeah. I always tell Gabby, like, I know I'm a musician in my heart. Like, I know what I want, and I know when I listen to a band, because I've been around so many musicians, you know, I kind of picked it up. But my parents never sent me to a school, or, you know, they never kind of say, oh, like, you know what, we're going to send you to a space where, you know, that you can learn how to play drums or guitar or piano, which my dad sings. My dad plays a guitar right now. My little brother plays a guitar. Yeah. I'm the only one who doesn't play anything. But
you're the star. You need to be like the rapper, singer.
I should. I'm the DJ Khaled, bro. Yeah. I pump people out.
Exactly.
But just taking it back to like, it's not in our circle many times or in our proximity, you know, that they nurture or they know what to do with that.
Yeah. Well, especially I think, especially because I think creativity and being gifted in some kind of artistic fashion, a lot of times, even if there is accessibility in it, it's usually limited. Because, you know, in school, you have like band and things like that where you could learn certain instruments, but, you know, maybe not the ones you want, maybe not the style you want. Or there's things like theater, but that things like that may not apply or feel like be that intriguing. So I think about myself, like, my parents actually did put us in lessons for music. You know, we did like the accordion for free. It was free. That's the only reason why they did it, but we did it for a little bit. But we did like guitar. But for me, as I learned, is that I liked it, but I never felt passion for those specific instruments, right? It wasn't until I started getting connected, because I always loved like hip hop music, and I started getting introduced to being able to actually do it for myself, that I found a passion like with music and creating music in that way. Predominantly using my voice as an instrument, even though it's not singing, but it's using words and all those skills that actually kind of come together to create. So I think that's the challenging part when you talk about nurturing, is that a lot of times it kind of comes through trial and error, self-discovery. But I think you're right that the important piece is being able to be in places that kind of open up to the opportunities, because it, the reality is, like you're saying, like you're a musician at heart, but you maybe never got the opportunity to actually step in and learn.
Mm-hmm. And I tried when I was older. Yeah, I actually pay to go to like drum classes. I did like 2 classes and then I got frustrated. I was like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not my priority. Maybe in the future. But yeah, I think that's very important. Once again, the reality is that maybe in our culture, many times, it's not really, we don't really value that aspect of you. Now, the reality is that when it comes down to creativity, we don't want to like just limit creativity to maybe painting or dancing or singing. I mean, if you resolve problems, that's being creative. You have a way to see different angles and bring it together in reconciliation. So
totally,
I think that's we have to eliminate this idea that creativity is just in one spectrum, right? It's different spectrums in different ways.
Yeah. My wife always says, she loves to say, "Oh, I'm not creative," because she's connecting it to the arts. She's connecting it to music. She's connecting it to all these things that she, doesn't feel like she has the skills for. But I always tell her, I'm like, no, like you have creativity in you when you're able to connect with a person and find a new way to do it. When you're able to, solve problems at work and figure out all of these aspects where it's like, if you weren't it takes creativity sometimes. You can't to be able to solve issues and things like that.
Of course. Come up. And I think that we arriving into a place where we're trying to define the different nuances of creativity, right?
Yeah.
I think we don't have the vocabulary still to explain the complexity of that, because I think when you have a lot of something, when you have a lot of something, you have different ways to describe it.
Yeah.
When you have a small portion of something, like you just have one word to describe it. For example, if you go to so for example, when you go to you live in a maybe here in the United States, when you think about tacos, there's just a limited amount of different different tacos that you have. You have asada, al pastor. Give me some other ones here. Carnitas, right? But if you go to another place like Mexico, you have different types of tacos, not just the type of meat, but the type of tortilla.
Yeah.
And you have salsas, and you have all that stuff. Like, so you have if you go to Mexico, you have a whole nother menu and so many other descriptions of tacos and salsas and meats. But here we have a limited way of describing it because we just have a few, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm going with this is like, hopefully with creativity, we can discover the nuances. Then as we have more and more, we can describe the different nuances, the description between artistry and creativity and innovation and the different things. And I think we're getting there. We're trying to figure that out because, like you say, creativity is not just the arts.
I think the I could be wrong, but my thought is, especially in the US, we kind of have a society that makes you have to pay to learn that. So like a lot of the critical thinking and learning how to solve problems creatively typically comes in like a college setting, which you have to pay for. So like the free education that we get from, the government is very bland and boring most of the time, and it's not engaging, and it doesn't foster students' creativity to think critically, to think about innovation, to think about how to look at a topic that they may not be super interested in, but find the things that they might see value for. So I think that's where it becomes challenging, because it's like, oh, you want to learn more, well, you have to pay to go to college. So
Yeah.
that's a thing where it's like it becomes difficult, that's reserved for those that can afford to do that.
And imagine, like, I think about if you go to the hood, there's so many creative kids in the hood.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of kids, man. Let's talk about Compton, like all the great artists that they have produced,
Yep.
Let's be real. Like a lot of the great artists that we have, rappers, hip hop, have come from a place like that. Even and just in general.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that one of the thoughts that crossed my mind, hopefully one day I'm allowed to do something like this. One of my dreams was, as being a pastor, is to be able to maybe find a way to open an art school for kids in the hood.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you capture their creativity, you can avoid so many other things that they can go and do, because sometimes they're just wandering around and there's nothing that really appeals to them.
Yeah.
Like imagine if you capture their creativity and their attention, and you actually try to help them and serve them. You never know what can we produce out of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that's a utopia, like, oh yeah, that would be cool to create a school for that. But I think that would be awesome, where they have access.
Yeah.
They have access to something that perhaps they will have to pay, otherwise.
Yeah.
I think that would be super awesome.
Yeah. Shia LaBeouf actually has like an acting program or whatever, in like South LA basically. So he's doing something similar, which is specific to kids that are interested in that, right? So that's the cool thing about programs like that, and people like him willing to invest, is you can take kids from those areas who would never have the opportunity to go to these super expensive acting schools, and give them an opportunity to get connected to the industry, get connected to just learning the skills.
Because many times we disregard them because they're not really good at school. I remember the first time I was sharing with you, in middle school, the first time I ever did a speech. My first speech, I was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
I was in 7th grade. So when I went to 7th grade, I was kind of like, from all my class, I was known because I didn't go to school. I would not go to class. I was the one that would will find a creative way to jump the what's it called, the to get out of the building, the school, to go the fence. I would jump the fence. There were huge fences, just to get out of school, and I would go play with my friends or whatever, So I would not show up to classes. But there was one class that I really liked, and that was geography. Geography, right?
Yeah.
And that encapsulate also, like study of the universe, not just here, but it's just study of the universe, planets, all that stuff. And that, to this day, it's very attractive to me.
Was it astronomy or geography?
And that time it was geography, because it was just a very basic class.
So it was kind of like everything. Okay.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah.
Because here geography is more like just like the world, as far as like,
completely. And I love that too. Yeah. I can tell you capitals, all that stuff for some reason, you know. But that was just everything together in one class. But anyways, so our teacher, I remember she told us, hey, there's gonna be what we're gonna do is that we want to choose a person to take him to to another school, or to compete with other schools.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much, you choose a speech, whatever topic you want when it comes up to geography, and you do like, I don't even remember the time, 5 minutes or something like that. And we're going to choose someone from the school, and is going to go and compete with other ones. So I loved it. I love the topic. So I was like, of course. And I found myself, it's one of those things that I was so passionate.
Wow.
I did it on my own. I don't even remember. I didn't even ask for help. I just remember that I wrote my little speech. I don't even know what I talk about. It was probably nonsense. But I remember being online to wait to actually participate and do my speech. my class, the girls and the guys that were in line, they would look at me, they would laugh at me like, what are you doing here? You don't even like this.
Dang.
They would laugh at me, bro. I was in line. I was like, dang, like I feel so like, dude, like what the heck, you know, like. And I remember I did my speech. I didn't want.
Yeah.
I would never thought that decades later that's what I was gonna be doing, speaking in front of people.
Yeah.
And I enjoy what I do, but once again, going back to this regarding kids, you know, I was very bad at school. Never. They actually they kicked me out of that school.
Jeez.
But that was something that I was like, man, I found life in here, you know. So I think that I wonder how many kids, you know, that maybe there's a spark, something that brings life to them.
Yeah.
But because in other aspects and other areas in their lives, they're not good, they're not productive. We disregard them, like they're just a lost cause.
Yeah.
You know.
Dang. Who were those kids' names? We got to look them up on Facebook, Instagram, and just send them your sermons, and be like, "Hey, who's laughing now?"
Funny enough, bro. One of my friends from where I grew up just contacted me. I think he has a nonprofit in where I grew up.
Oh wow!
And he contacted me. He was like, "Hey, like, I seen what you're doing. Like, let's collab."
That's crazy.
Which is crazy to me because he was known as a speaker.
Yeah.
And now he's contacting me and say, "Hey, let's collab. I like what you're doing." I was like, "All right, let's do it."
Dude, that's crazy.
So that would be awesome. Anyways,
dude, yeah, it's funny. You know, kind of. I had a similar experience growing up. I was around the same age, 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah.
And I never forget the first time I had to speak in front of a classroom. and the thing is, like, I had a paper and everything, you know? I would never forget, like, going up in front of the classroom. And the thing is, like, I'm very, like, light-skinned and, like, my, like, cheeks get red and all that. So, like, I was always my biggest, like, insecurity in high school was, you know, in middle school and all that. It was like whenever I got embarrassed, like you could see it, you know? So when I went in front of the classroom, I had to share, you know, read what was on the paper.
Yeah.
And man, I was so embarrassed to read that paper and to be in front of the class. And I just like, I don't know if people were laughing or what they were. I was just nervous.
Yeah.
And you know, never did I was always like in outside of school, really, I was always comfortable with talking and, you know, being, you know, talkative, whatever. But I never thought that it would be necessarily a gift, something that I would be able to, you know, use in my, not just in my work, but also like with the creative things that I do with, you know, now getting to do this podcast, do music, you know, the things that I get to do with the church, like all of that stuff, man, is like, it's just crazy to think that at a young age, you know, you don't realize the things that you're going to start gravitating to, but it's not just gravitating to, because I think it's learning your talents, you know, because I think there's a part of this conversation is also creativity being something that we're all capable of doing, but there's also specific gifts and talents that are God-given, like I mentioned in the beginning. And I think that's a part of what I think that, you know, whether it's parents with their kids or just in as a kid themselves, because I know for myself, you know, I never would have imagined doing music until I was actually put in a situation to learn about it, because I had a group of friends who were, you know, rapping in the closet and recording their own songs. And then, you know, I got to be a part of that and kind of see it and experience it and sit down and say, I literally felt like, hey, I think I could write a verse. I think I could do this. And I felt that within me, and I did it, and I felt good, and I you know, continued to find passion there. But that's part of the self-discovery process is actually being able and willing to put yourself in those situations and learn what you're good at and learn the things that you may not be so great at. But knowing that, don't let those moments where you're feeling like you're not so great at it hold you back from discovering, you know, the things you do have talent for.
Yeah, because I think it's through our creativity that we kind of share what is in our hearts and our minds, no? my wife, I believe, not just because it's my wife, she's very, very creative.
Yeah.
And she's not so good maybe with words. She gets frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
but she can communicate what she feels and what she thinks, and what she gets triggered by her art.
Yeah.
Whatever she draws, whatever she designs, she does the way she communicates what is in her heart, and I think it's the reason why I was sharing about like opening a school and like in the hood and all this stuff. I don't know if you remember, man. That's what I was trying to Google. There was a movie, I think it was called Cheap. It was It was about like in artificial intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and this guy creates this. I don't know how you pronounce it. Robot. And it comes alive, but they steal him.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, they steal stuff, and they steal him, and they start corrupting him. And then the creator of that piece tries to find him, and he finds him, and he's trying to nurture his creativity.
Yeah.
Because he's being corrupt.
Oh wow.
And one of the things that he tells the robot, he's like, nurture your creativity. And he's trying to make him create stuff, because that helps him like not get so corrupted by what this guy's.
Wow.
So that just triggered me when I was thinking about the whole idea of like, I do believe that,
Yeah.
when we many times, when we get into this unhealthy patterns, unhealthy habits, and this dark place, is because we haven't probably find and nurture that aspect that brings life to us.
Have you seen the movie Soul?
Yes.
Yeah. So I loved that image in that movie when they talk about being in the zone, and how like it's almost like a spiritual thing.
Yes.
Or even how like they were kind of comparing like people who have kind of lost their creativity, lost their spark, how it just kind of like they just kind of sink into themselves and they become like nothing almost. And
it's this dark cloud there's on top of it.
So I think that's there's real validity in that in regards to what kind of working and investing into like our own creativity can really do for us. And I think that's important to talk about, because I think there's a difference between people who want their creativity to turn into like a business versus those that just have these things that they enjoy to do that are creative, but is more of a hobby, just something that should be a part of their life, but not something they necessarily have to make money in. Because I think that's where we as creatives, especially I think both of us who are very ambitious, like we desire to make money off of our art because we feel like it's valuable. We feel like there's potential for that. For some people, they don't want to do that. They just want to enjoy creating whatever that looks like. And I think we're called. I think some of us are called to both. Because I think even for myself, I've been creating music, clothing, all these things for years, and I've made some money, but nothing like crazy. It's really just been, sustaining, but that doesn't mean that I don't feel like I'm not called to do it, So I think there's that kind of place for people where those that are creating, and that should be a very much so a part of who they are, but not doesn't always mean it's going to be a business.
I think changing, I want to change the gear in this whole thing. The danger, when it comes down to what we do now, when it comes to creatives, is that the distraction piece. I think the challenge for some of us is that we can become very lazy, very vague in the way we see things. Maybe it's hard for us to focus and to be consistent into things. This is just I think in some of the circles and some of the people that I know, that we need to bring some sort of order, consistency, structure. I remember TD Jakes talking about, if you want to bear more responsibility, you need to build more structure in your life. The only way you can sustain more is if you build more structure in your life.
Yeah.
So I think as creatives, we have to be willing to build that structure in our lives to be able to sustain more. Mm-hmm. And I know this is kind of like going to another whole other side, but the reality is that right now, going back to what we're thinking, what we're talking about, if you ever felt, maybe you're the one listening, if you ever felt that you didn't fit in a place, or you didn't feel that the traditional education you were good at, or you didn't follow a path that it was the average path for everyone, like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you found what you were supposed to do, and you find what brings you life, or you probably haven't because of, sometimes we're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
I think my desire, my prayer is that you find it. You find it, that you fit in a place, that you will find a place that you can connect and you can find a community, because I think creativity is fostered in community. Yeah. And I think we trigger each other. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important.
Yeah, it's true. I want to just, echo that. I think that's really important, is surrounding yourself with people who champion your creativity, who give you permission to share that and express that part of you, because it's a vulnerable piece. I kind of talked about that on Instagram a little bit this past week, since I kind of launched some new pieces for my clothing. Yep, right there. That's right. And it's true, man. I mean, there's a vulnerability in our creativeness that I think a lot of people don't understand. So that's why people are very quick to critique. Mm-hmm. Which is fair. I mean, when we create something and you put it out, like, you have to expect and know that it's out there for the world to critique. But I think when you have a group of people, friends, and a community that understands, that's so important. That is extremely valuable. And that will only make your art and your creativeness flourish and thrive.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of my thoughts on that. Yeah. I feel find a way to nurture it, even if you're not creating or making money out of it. Yeah, I think it's an important thing to do. Yeah. My wife and I always try to find new ways to nurture our creativity. I feel like that's what brings life to us. Yeah. When we feel stuck, when we feel frustrated, irritated, when we feel maybe anxious to a certain point, even depressed. Yeah. I think we always try to figure out what triggers us, Yeah. That could be walks, that could be spaces. Mm-hmm. But I think that all we're saying is perhaps you didn't feel in this box that society have created. Yeah. And that's completely fine. Mm-hmm. There's a community for you. You will find a space for you to be connected to. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like we're gonna have to do a part 2 to this episode, because I have other thoughts that we could just kind of continue going on. But I think that was good, man, for today. And I like that. Nurture your creativity. I think that's a good kind of thought to end on.
Yep. Love it.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening, again, this is maybe you're the creative, or, the friend of a person who's creative, or maybe you just don't know your creative gifts, or you don't acknowledge them as that. I believe God has created us all with creativity, because it's a part of who He is. So find it, nurture it, and we love you guys. For those that have listened and stay listening consistently, this is the Soul Tapes podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.
We out.
22 reasons, look at my life, see how I'm breathing, hearing my thoughts, chill in my house, see how it begins. I'm going so hard till I get weak, turn up on weekends, feeling so blessed, don't stop me, I'm peaking. Yeah.